Smart 24, driving business.
Hello and good evening. Welcome along to The Point this very fruitful day as we continue our conversations today rotating around the infrastructure sector in Uganda. It's a big one when you come to think of it, and I think our conversations will definitely build up upon the same matter, which looks to be very wide. And of course, for those who are joining Smart 24 Television for the very first time, I will tell you The Point is where we analyze economic policies, and obviously we normally get into deeper policies that affect you as an individual, as a Ugandan, as a business person, and we try to put them into proper context. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko to make sure that this is a discussion that we put to bed. Of course, you should be reminded that you can as well watch and stream Smart 24 Television anywhere, anytime. That is by downloading the Smart Digital app. Now, with the Smart Digital app, you can download it on the Google Play Store and the iOS, where you can easily watch Smart 24 TV, listen to Smart FM for education and entertainment. So it's a fully packed edutainment kind of situation with Smart FM. Besides that, you can as well listen to NBS Cordell and listen to every little detail regarding social and economic factors coming in from Eastern and the whole of the country at large. Well, of course, The Point is coming to you live now as we continue to have our discussions, really. And of course, a discussion can't go with only one person. Joining me this particular moment as we are definitely heading into an analysis of the infrastructure sector towards the economic development of Uganda. And of course, we want to first of all digest the performance of the infrastructure development of the infrastructure sector, which is one of the key priorities, by the way, in the financial year when it comes to the program-based budget allocations and their top priorities. If you to look at the priorities, it is number 4 on the list. So when you come to think of it as well, our conversations are in there, and my guest this evening, or who is joining us on set, is Geoffrey Odong, who is the program officer from Coast, Uganda. Many thanks for joining us, Mr. Odong. Good evening.
Thank you very much, my brother and dear viewers. I want to appreciate Smart TV for welcoming me for the second time to discuss with our fellow Ugandans issues pertaining to infrastructure in the country and how do we benefit out of it and how does it help us improve life, better economy. And that's why we are here and we are able to discuss with them what we do and what we feel in terms of information. What do we lack in our process? What people would want us to do differently? And where can we partner like we are working together with you? I want to appreciate the management of Smart 24 TV for also being part and parcel of this struggle in trying to relay different information that relates to how government infrastructure projects are being delivered in the country. And I think this is very paramount. You are also playing your role as citizen, you are playing your role as an institution that embrace access to information to Uganda.
Yeah. Well, of course, as we continue with our conversations, Mr. Odong here, looking at infrastructure, one may have a question regarding the role of good infrastructure. And in context today, before we even go there, what does cost represent? Because we may speak infrastructure. Infrastructure is wide. There is infrastructure in regards to the road networks. There is infrastructure in regards to buildings in the capital or buildings in any town. But what does Coast Uganda represent in this kind of conversation we have today?
Yeah, well, my brother, let me start by first of all conveying greetings from my executive director, who for a long time has been very pertinent in the struggle to promote access to information. Uganda chapter Just to allow our viewer understand what it is. It is part of COS International, and it is a tripartite arrangement between government, private sector, and civil society. The Infrastructure Transparency Initiative strives to promote access to information, but most importantly, looking at disclosures of information relating to infrastructure data that are always available at different entities in government, department, ministries, and then local government. We have 4 core features of our work. Number 1, we promote disclosure of this information. We understand PPDA is the custodian of government procurement process as provided for under the Act that established the PPDA. And indeed, PPDA have developed with government what we call government procurement portal. And these portals, the different entities, procuring entities, are supposed to disclose information relating to infrastructure implementation. And this information, for us as COS, help us to ensure that multi-stakeholders come into play to make sure they define what they feel is right for disclosure, what they feel is right, what kind of data should be disclosed for the public consumption, and also to facilitate the different players in procurement circle. And therefore, our work is to make sure that this infrastructure data are disclosed. And once it is disclosed, we are very pertinent that citizens who are the most beneficiaries of these government infrastructures are able to interface with this information, and that information will empower them to be able to hold their leaders accountable. So we have element of disclosure of information. We embrace multi-stakeholders working, where we have different actors in government who have a role to play in making sure that public procurement processes are understood and the kind of data that should be made public is identified. Now, the third thing that we do, which is very key for us, is that we do different studies, and we call them assurance studies, and these studies help us to understand deeper the different infrastructure data that are uploaded or posted in the government procurement portal. And we try to make meanings of those data. How do we do it? We do studies, we analyze the data. After analyzing the data, we validate data. After validating, based on set standards that we have. Of course, COS operates in this field by promoting what we call open contracting for infrastructure data standard. And of course, this data standard, we have 40 of them. And the 40 standard that we talked about, some of them, when it comes to disclosure, we handle them in 2 perspectives. One, there are indicators or standards that should be disclosed without necessarily any Ugandan asking for them. I can cite an example. When we have a contract maybe awarded to a company, what should be disclosed immediately is about the project, is about the money involved, is the bill of quantity, the location of the project, the procuring entity, or the project officer. This information are information that should be made public.
Yes.
Even tendering process should be made public, because based on those information, the different companies would be able to identify their capacity and relate to what advert has been made for undertaking any contract work. So if they have seen those information and they feel they don't qualify. Of course, they don't waste time to apply for those work. Instead of not knowing, and then you apply, and then at the end of the day, you don't meet qualification or the specification for those contracts. So those proactive disclosure of information is one of the aspects when we are doing analysis for this disclosure of information in the infrastructure project we look at. And then there are reactive disclosure of information, and this specifically goes beyond what is there in the contract document to issues of quality of contract being delivered. It look at environmental safety, safeguard, because it is important that if those reports are there, environmental safety and health safeguard is important, because all these projects have an impact on citizens. And then, if that report is produced, some of these reports now, those who are doing analysis, like for us, that what we do, we go to those entities, ask for those reports. And if it is there, it will state the condition that has been established for that purpose. Then it will help the citizen to understand whether the project will affect them or it will not affect them, either positively or negatively. So those are on the reactive disclosure of information. So that is the two ways under which the disclosure of infrastructure information is done in our program. Of course, after we have done analysis, the report is produced.
This is still from the administrative level.
Yes, this is at the administrative level when we are trying to make meanings of data that have been disclosed in the government procurement portal. So having done that, of course, we have done series of studies. We have done scoping studies. We have done assurance, up to 5 of them. So all these report, the finding therein helps stakeholders to discuss and see what are some of the pertinent issues that are affecting the business environment for the different people who participate in infrastructure work. So discussion can be done, like Tuesday the 11th, we launched a different report again. We did analysis, analytical report on different information that have been displaced based on set standard that we had. I will explain them at some point. But all this information that we get them help us to promote transparency by the different stakeholders or the citizen holding leaders accountable, or the entities that are responsible for implementation of all these infrastructures accountable for the action they have done. And also, we also do learn best practices from the analysis, which can be adopted by the different company to improve on the way they deliver on infrastructure projects in this country. Yes.
All right, Mr. Odong, let's look at the impact or the role of world-class infrastructure. When I talk about world-class infrastructure, I'm looking at infrastructure that is highly, the one we look at in the first world countries or first-class countries here. What is the importance of having a stable road network, for example? Because when you look at the fact that most of the Ugandans can now understand, with the kind of traffic jam that we are currently having or facing within the capital city, the delay is highly because of the poor state of roads as well as the narrowness of these roads. But besides that, let's get into a discussion of understanding why infrastructure needs to be highly developed for an economy to grow big.
This evening, during the day, I had a discussion with one of the members of parliament. For him, he stay in Entebbe and come for work in parliament.
Yes, we have quite.
And he was telling me it takes only 23 minutes to arrive in parliament.
If he has woken up earlier.
I asked him, with all this traffic jam on the road, he said, with this bypass that have been constructed, it is very easy to travel from Entebbe to Kampala on his case.
Okay.
I'm basing on his case. Of course, I know viewers outside there have different challenges. Of course, depend on the road you use.
And even the car,
and the kind of the kind of vehicle that they use. But I was in tangent with what he said, because government over the last few years have invested a lot of money in infrastructure. Even in Kampala here, we have seen many of these bypasses that have been constructed have reduced road traffic. And indeed, if in terms of delivering goods, services, and also for easy movement of the different workers in Kampala, I think we are saving time. With good road help you to save time. And when you save time, you are able to engage more of your time in gainful economic activities at personal level or at an institutional level. And therefore, contribute to high output of individuals and high output from institutions. Let's say factory that produce, let's say, produce wheat, and you have many trailers coming all over the country to the same factory, and they could easily get to the factory and out of the factory, which means the level of sale will go up. And when it goes up, which means the company makes profit, and this profit gets taxes to government. Of course, we remember in the current budget, you were there when the minister was reading the budget. You saw a statement of Uganda would be able to finance the budget up to a tune of 70%. Now, this 70% comes when the rate at which goods, services travel from one point to the other easily without delays. So, if there are reduced delay, it increases time for production. Now, once time for production has gone up, it means sale will automatically also perhaps go up. And then rate of return on investment will perhaps also go high. And now, once those goes high, then these business people will have, will celebrate and be able to pay taxes without difficulties, because they are also getting sale in time, and therefore they cannot hesitate to fulfill the obligation for taxation. And I think in one aspect that would be very good. Of course, we have seen access to the different facilities that we have. We have health facilities, we have schools. All these facilities here, with bad roads, it is very difficult. Let me take an example. If we have bad roads, and we have an emergency cases of referral of a mother who is getting medical services from one facility, and the facility have identified that they cannot help this person, then this person must be referred to another facility. And if the road is good, it will take shorter time for the ambulance to reach to another facility with a better services. And if the road is bad, what happens? Either even this person may not reach the other facility, and therefore it helps to save life. And once we are able to save life, then we know the human capital is available to engage in gainful economic activities, and this one will promote the GDP or aggregate or gross domestic product, which eventually will contribute to the growth of the nation. So I think good roads is very important in many aspects, including in the market, including accessing facilities, and also making sure we are able to attract tourists. We have seen in countries where the road network is bad, even the numbers of tourists goes down. Why? Because they may not be comfortable with the road network, and therefore they say, okay, for me, I will prefer this country, I will prefer this country. So we have also seen many tourists have come to our country, and they have given us a lot of money because road network has been improved, and I think Ministry of Work has done a lot.
A quick one here. We've seen quite a number of delays in construction, and quite a number of delays in making sure that these roads are maintained. At times, we realize that we never hit our deadlines when it comes to the construction dates that have actually been set apart. And then, as well, you realize that in one way or the other, it still slows down the economy a bit when you look at a different approach of it from a wider scope. How are we going to curb this kind of situation whereby if we say the Kampala flyover is supposed to get done by the first phase, for example, we expect the first phase to get done by the end of this year, hopefully. But by the look of things, it's actually taking a slow pace. The question is, how are we going to get into that feel of always executing these particular road projects in time when it comes to such situations?
I think one of the factors that leads to delays of implementation of infrastructure project is number one is about classification of these contractors.
Okay.
Different contractors have got different capacity to deliver on a project. And if a contract is given to a contractor whose capacity does not resonate well with the contract he has won, then there's a possibility that the contract may be delayed. Number two, certification of work. Of course, construction work have got stages.
Okay.
And therefore, the procuring and then disposing entities have got to make sure they monitor those stages in the contract implementation and be able to certify that at this level, the work that is done is good, and therefore they issue a certificate which makes these people to move further with the work. So administrative decision affects timely delivery of some of these infrastructure project. Number two is about releases of fund. Sometimes we may have a multi-billion fund project, and sometimes fund takes long to be released to the contractors. And when it delays, then it affects timely implementation of the project. Now, this is from the supplier side. This I'm meaning from government side or the entity side. Now, from the contractor is about capacity, which I mentioned. The equipment itself, the technical officers that should man this process. Sometimes they may have some gaps, and these gaps will affect implementation. And then I think if citizens and all the other stakeholders are not aware of the start date and end date of a project implementation, infrastructure project implementation, then there is a likelihood from the contractor to be reluctant also. Because he's not mindful of who is watching him. So it takes his own time. Sometimes he could have got 2 or 3 contracts. Because people here are not aware of anything that he's doing, then he will go and concentrate in the other project, leave this for some time. That's the other one halfway, comes back here. So that one is one way, because they would be knowing that nobody is closely watching them from the other stakeholders like citizens, because the citizens are the ultimate beneficiaries of this project, and therefore if they are at the know of every information, that's why we are very key and we are very interested in promoting disclosure, because this disclosure we are talking about, it empowers citizens and other stakeholders to be responsible, and also all these contractors accountable for what they are doing. And therefore, I think this one will contribute towards making sure these delays sometimes are addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, but of course, maybe finally, monitoring of these contract work is very important. And these are done in different levels. We have the project managers from the entity who should be able to monitor and also produce report. And this report help higher level to understand and assess the level of implementation. And where they see there's a gap, there's a red flag, they should be able to intervene and say, the speed at which the construction is moving is not, we may not be able to deliver this implementation within time, and therefore they should be able to advise the contractor in time without delay. So from the different studies, even the one we launched, they are what we call time overrun. We do analysis on that because that has implication. The moment there's time overrun,
yes,
there's possibility of also cost overrun. Why? Because market prices, which you determine today, there could be variation between now and tomorrow. No. So if you over delay, prices in the market may go up, and therefore the contractors may again go back to the project managers or the procuring entity to begin negotiating for adjustment, and that affects
the progress of
the agreed contract budget.
And
that leads us to cost variation.
Well, more conversations and discussions rotating around the same matter of analyzing the infrastructure sector performance and, of course, its role towards the economic development of the country is what we are going to be having immediately after the break. You're still watching The Point, where we analyze economic policies in one way or the other. And, of course, stick around with us. After the break, I return with Mr. Odong Geoffrey as we continue with our conversations around the issues to do with infrastructure development in the country. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Smart 24, driving business.